Hey there, it's Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm in a good mood, so we're going to do a massive book haul because those are the only kind of book hauls I do here on this channel. I'm going to try my best not to sing through this haul, but I do sing when I'm happy. But without further ado, let's get right down to the books that I've recently hauled in. So first of all, I did a book swap with Jen from Bookmark on the Wall, who's a good friend of mine, and she had 2 proofs of Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. So she said I could have one as we exchanged books. This is R.F. Kuang's latest novel, and I think it delves into like the publishing world and writing and racism and two-facedness and what's really going on under the scenes in terms of like the writing community and the publishing community. It's a fictionalized story. I make it sound like non-fiction. Basically the industry that I work in, okay? I work in a publisher. I'm curious. People say it's amazing. R.F. Kuang seems to write really popular, really good books from what I've seen. I've only read The Poppy War all the way through, but I do really like her writing style. I want to get behind it. I want to know why everyone loves this book, and I have a feeling it'll be the type of criticism embedded into fiction that I tend to enjoy as well. Thank you to the publisher for sending me a copy of Lore Olympus Volume 4. So Lore Olympus is a Hades and Persephone Greek myth retelling by Rachel Smythe. It's a graphic novel. This is the 4th volume in the series, and I've been enjoying this series quite a lot. I think Persephone is amazing. I love seeing her growth and her development. I love seeing the Greek mythology in a contemporary kind of setting, and at the end of the last volume you saw this iconic image that is going to lead into where the story is going next. I'm just very excited to be on that journey. I'm very excited to see how things are going to unfold, and I think the series is going to pick up again here, so I'm looking forward to reading this 4th volume. We have Learned by Heart by Emma Donoghue, which this proof is really cool, but that's what the cover is kind of based on. And so this is Emma Donoghue's latest historical fiction novel, and it's about Gentleman Jack essentially. If you know who that is, and if you don't, you should look it up. But I fairly recently learned about Gentleman Jack when I was in the Queer Britain Museum, and it just really interested me, that whole story and that whole life that really happened. And there's the Diaries of Gentleman Jack, so this is kind of a historical fictional story which is set when that character is in a boarding school in 1805 where 2 young teenage girls meet and they have a love affair, and it's what that love affair is like as it unfolds between the both of them. So I was very curious about this character, but I have also read and enjoyed Emma Donoghue books before, so I'm looking forward to trying another one. We have Melissa by Alex Gino, and this is a middle grade story about a trans child who's kind of going on that journey in school, and it's very short and very quick, but I've heard that the representation in this one is really good. And a big thank you to Chelsea from Chelsea Jow for gifting this one to me. She was giving some trans authored books to people randomly as the Trans Girl Readathon was happening in April. So thank you so much, Chelsea. I'm looking forward to reading this, and I've just heard such good things, and it's one of those middle grade books I've wanted to really try for a very long time. Speaking of middle grade, we have The Lost Whale by Hannah Gold. For something that I'm doing over on Instagram, I was sent the Indie Book Awards Children's Shortlist, which are these awards that happen in the UK. They're chosen by booksellers, and I read The Last Bear by Hannah Gold last year for something quite similar, and it was fantastic. It was wonderful, and I really enjoyed it. So this is her next book. I don't know anything about it, but it's probably going to be giving like climate change and animal conservatism vibes from what I know of her previous book, and that's all I really needed to know, that it was by Hannah Gold, and then I wanted to read it. Another one that was on the shortlist, I'm just going to show you this quickly. It's Skandar and the Unicorn Thief by A.F. Steadman. I think this is absolutely deserved to be on the shortlist because I've already read this one this year and I really enjoyed it. So I'll leave a link to the wrap up where I review this book, but essentially it's set in a world where unicorn riders exist and unicorns exist, and this young child bonds to a unicorn. When they bond, they discover that they have a power that's been forbidden for a very long time, and at the same time there's a unicorn thief who's going around and stealing unicorns from their riders. So that is what's happening in this book. It is fantastic, it is wonderful, and a very good start to to a new series. Thank you to the publisher for sending me Devotion by Hannah Kent. This is a beautiful paperback and it's a historical fiction book that I've heard so many good things about. So it's set in 1800s Prussia. It's about these two women who kind of come together and find that they have an undeniable bond, and I think they fall in love with each other. But it's dangerous for them where they are, and so they choose to emigrate to Australia, where there is a possibility of a better life, of safety, of happiness. But of course, from Prussia to Australia is a very long journey, and things that happen along the way will test their relationship and their bond. Ooh, this is a big book. We have On the Savage Side by Tiffany McDaniel. I tend to only pick up one book when I go to London Book Fair because I work in publishing. I do go to London Book Fair, and one of the books that I picked up, well, the only book I picked up was On the Savage Side by Tiffany McDaniel. I know absolutely nothing about this book, but Tiffany McDaniel will always be an author I just pick up like that. I read The Summer That Melted Everything by her, which is her debut many years ago now, and I absolutely fell in love. I think it was fantastic and a wonderful book. I'm currently reading Betty, which is Tiffany McDaniel's second book, and it's very good, and this is her third book, her latest book, and so I'm looking forward to reading it. I think this US cover for it is gorgeous, and it has deckled edges, and I am one of those people who do enjoy deckled edges, so that even sealed the deal all the more for me. We also have here from the publishers Roman Stories by Jhumpa Lahiri, and this is a short story collection. You may know this author as the author of The Namesake, which is one of my friend's favourite books ever. So while I have not read anything by Lahiri before, I'm looking forward to trying some of her short stories to get a taste of her writing. Okay, so the month in which I'm filming this, I read The Secret Barrister, and I thought it was an amazing book. So I sneakily requested from the publisher a review copy of Nothing But the Truth, which is now out in paperback, which is by The Secret Barrister. So The Secret Barrister is a barrister in the UK who's kind of exposing what the law system and what it's really like in the UK, how it's flawed, how it's breaking down, in what ways it succeeds, if it does in any. This is their third book. Secret Barrister is anonymous, and this one is their memoir. So they're talking about their own journey into becoming a barrister, some of the cases that they've faced and done and undertaken, and what they saw that made them feel pulled to talk to a wider audience about what the law system is really like. Thank you to the publisher for sending me two books by Erik J. Brown. So Erik J. Brown is a young adult contemporary-ish writer who seems to be amazing. I've only heard good things. So his first book was All That's Left in the World, and this is kind of a post-apocalyptic contemporary YA mashup that I saw winning all of the awards, and so I'm very excited to try this one. And here we have his latest, which is called Lose You to Find Me, and in this one it's about these two boys. One of them wants to go to culinary school and he's being trained up as a waiter in the meanwhile to kind of gain experience, and everything is going well until his old-time school crush Gabe kind of crashes into his life and he has to work with Gabe, and I feel like maybe it's a chance for that crush to be realised. So these two are for my young adult contemporary side of me that crops up every now and again and stays persistently for a while. Ooh, let's talk about middle grade. So we have here a finished copy of Fireborn by Aisling Fowler. So this is the first book in the Fireborn series, which is a middle grade fantasy series, and actually one of my favourite middle grade fantasy series that's actively coming out with books right now. I'm just loving it to pieces. And when I had to refund a book, which because it was damaged, which was actually Melissa but from Chelsea, had to refund it because it was damaged, but in doing so there was leftover credit, so I decided to get a book I'd already read so it wouldn't count towards my TBR challenge. And I just loved this book so much. I read it in proof, and I just really wanted a finished copy with a stunning cover with the gold foiling so that I could just have it as part of my collection. I adore this fantasy series. It's about 12 and she's given up everything in her life to go and train in this school where you learn to be the best fighter, but when her friend at this school, her only friend, gets kidnapped, she goes on a journey and an adventure to rescue her friend, and she goes with a group of people who are not quite friends but end up being teammates that she has to work with, and it's fantastic, and there's so much more to it than that, but you've got to dive in to find out. Next up we have one with a very interesting concept, and that is The Center by Ayesha, Manazir, Siddiqi. And in this one, you can go to the center and they promise that you're going to be fluent in any language in the world of your choice in a very, very short amount of time. But when you go to the center, you have to stay in the center and nobody knows what really happens there. And we follow our main character who decides to go to the center, who decides to undergo this language course and discovers that maybe not everything is as it seems at the center. The cover is very, very creepy. I just love the concept of being able to learn any language very fast. It sounds like it really gets into the dark side of dark academia, so I'm looking forward to that. We have Sorry Bro by Taleen Voskuni, which just sounds like a book that covers a lot of the themes that I tend to enjoy. So we've got an Armenian American main character, and when she breaks up with her boyfriend, she decides that it's time to find someone who shares her own idea of romance. And as she decides to do that, she's going to try and let her mum set her up with different Armenian people and tap into her Armenian culture more than she ever really has. It's a side of her identity she has not explored before. And I think in doing so, she meets a girl who she might really like, and she learns that maybe there's elements of her culture that she should appreciate that she hasn't before. So I know that this is a bisexual rom-com style book, but it also deals a lot with identity. So for this book, I was entirely influenced by Friends. So this is a Girlhood by Carolyn Hayes. It's a non-fiction book. It's by an anonymous author who we know is a celebrity somewhere out there, and they are writing a letter to their transgender daughter. So I think it's about some of the experiences that they faced with being parents of someone who's trans, not because they don't support their child, but because of the way that other people react and the things that other people do. And I've seen Victoria from What Victoria Read and Charlotte from Books and Bargains both read this book, and they both had a lot of positive things to say and said how impactful and emotional it was, and that just made me want to pick it up. So consider me influenced. I'm going to try it and read it. Now we have Shark Heart by Emily Habeck, and this is a literary fiction book where there's a couple, and one of the people in this couple is slowly turning into a shark. So it's a bit of a like magical realism, probably symbolistic story about love and letting go and nature and all of those elements fused together. I recently read Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, and it did not serve me what I wanted it to serve me, and I'm sincerely hoping that Shark Heart is going to do that for me. Portrait in Shadow by Nicole Jarvis. So this is a historical fiction book about Artemisia, who was an artist, and Artemisia had something happen to her. It's a whole thing. You should look it up and read up on it and about that lawsuit and that case. I've been very interested in what happened to that artist and the traumatic experience that that artist underwent, and I kind of like that this book is set after all that's happened, after all of the trauma, after the lawsuit, after everything. This artist is now in a historical magical setting where she's trying to let go of her anger, wield her revenge, and kind of reclaim herself. So it's like a story of what happens next, set in a historical fantasy setting, and I think that sounded so cool. It sounded like a very good blend of genres, but I also liked that it didn't focus on the trauma but moved to give Artemisia another kind of story, another kind of narrative, and I was here for it. So now we have more of the shortlist from the Indie Book Awards. So we've got Hedgewitch by Skye McKenna. This is the first book in a middle grade fantasy series. It has something to do with witches. I haven't looked into it too much, but I think middle grade fantasy and witchy books have been surprising me recently, and I've been enjoying them more than I assumed I would, so I'm going to continue and see if that's the case for this one too. The Elemental Detectives by Patrice Lawrence. Again, I don't know too much about this. I was sent this package of books for something on Instagram, and I have heard very good things about Patrice Lawrence, about how she's a really good black young adult and middle grade writer, and because it's called The Elemental Detectives, I can just tell already that it blends fantasy and mystery, so that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. Marv and the Pool of Peril by Alex Falase-Koya and pictures by Paula Bowes, and I'm probably going to just sit down and blitz through this in a singular day, but it's about this like superhero boy who's scared of swimming pools and then like has to face up to that fear to be a superhero. And we also have here The Thief of Farrowfell by Ravena Guron, and this is a middle grade fantasy book where you have to eat magic and able to use it and wield it, and we're following our main character, who's a thief, and she steals this magic. It's usually only for the rich people who can afford to eat it, so the fact that she steals it and is wielding it for her own interests sounds like it's going to be a fun ride. Down to the last 2 books here. So first I'll tell you about the fiction one, and that is Giulietta and the Romeos by Maria E. Andreu, and if you know me, you know why I picked this one up. It's Romeo and Juliet retelling, of course, but in this contemporary book it sounds like Juliet has more than one Romeo in her bag that she can choose from. So there's either going to be a love triangle or a love square, and I'm here for that kind of drama, so I was like, yes please, feed it to me. And then last but not least, I'm very excited to tell you about this one, and that is the 20-minute vegan cookbook by Callum Harris. And Callum Harris is a TikToker and Instagrammer who's very famous for doing really quick, easy and affordable vegan meals. I've been using the sampler for this cookbook for a very long time, so I've been trying these recipes and I've been really loving them. It's true what it says on the cover, you can make these recipes in 20 minutes. They are vegan. You buy the staple ingredients that this cookbook says and then you use them again and again and again, so you're not breaking the bank each and every time. They're delicious, they look appealing, and also just the way that it's written is so like down to earth and conversationalist that it's actually fun to read the recipes. I've already read this cookbook, which means like reading the first pages, reading the introductions, reading some of the recipes. I've already done all that. Don't talk about every single cookbook that I get, but I did want to mention this one just because I'm loving it so much, and I know it can be hard to find a good vegan cookbook, but if you do want one to try, please do check this one out. And thank you to the publisher for sending a full copy my way, since I loved the sampler so much. And you might see it appearing in other vlogs as I like cook some of these meals and read books. And there you have it. Those are all the books that I've hauled recently. Please let me know in the comment section down below which one here interests you the most, but also let me know which book you've recently bought, received, borrowed or acquired. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!